Hey, what's up, everybody? Chicago Gooner here, bringing you another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'll be talking about the return of Theo Walcott, maybe some England international stuff, especially surrounding Jack Wilshere. Of course, the injury bug that's going around Arsenal once again for the season, and also a little bit maybe of some transfer news as well. Uh, But going on to maybe more of the good news right now is having Theo Walcott back into full training finally. On Arsenal.com they released a little bit of a press release on September 30th that he'll be back in full training, and of course he has been. You've seen all the pictures. They haven't really released any type of video on it or anything like that, but he's going to see his first action in the under 21s today uh, for Arsenal. Um, he will not be available for Hull City. Arsene Wenger already said he wants to get him in at least a game or two with the under 21s to kind of get him back into some type of rhythm, because you can only simulate uh, like game time decisions and in the pace of a game, the tempo of a game, and to get match fit again, only so much in training. Uh, so he's going to get a couple games probably. You probably won't see him on the bench until possibly even the closest time I would expect maybe isn't until the Sunderland game, and of course that's after the Hull City and of course the Anderlecht game coming up on Wednesday. But it's good to see him back. It's good to have him back because we've definitely been missing him. You can even you can make the argument that we missed him even more than Aaron Ramsey last season, because we missed that extra pace on the wings. We missed that extra attacker. We missed that extra goal scorer. We missed that extra person who could actually put good cross after good cross. I think Olivier Giroud really suffered from that last year, of not having Theo into the side, because Theo's one of the better crossers, especially in the Premier League, as a winger, and you definitely kind of miss that extra cross into the box when you actually need it. Um, you know, Better off than Sanya would have maybe one or two crosses a game, and that just doesn't kind of cut it for a fullback. You want to see at least three, four, maybe even five good crosses that we can be dangerous on, and we just don't have that. Uh, so it's great to have Theo back, and to have that pace, to have that skill, and to have that extra goal scorer on the pitch, because right now the only kind of threats that we do have on the pitch right now would be Danny Welbeck and Alexis Sanchez, and that's about it. Aaron Ramsey, I guess, is going to be back into training on Monday. Supposedly, he will be into the squad for the Anderlecht game. Supposedly, that's what Arsene Wenger said. So who knows how far along he is and how match fit he is that he can actually play. Chances are he'll probably be on the bench, obviously, instead of just throwing him out into the wolves. But we're getting a couple guys back that we desperately need at this point, especially with Mesut Ozil, out. One of the other things that Theo is going to bring that we've been kind of lacking, especially this year, even last year, is that leadership. Whenever it came to like big games or anything like that, Theo was always up for it. He's, that's, you could point out some of his best games have been against, like Spurs and like Man City and Chelsea and stuff like that, where, he shows up for those big games. He always looks forward to those big games, and he always makes his voice heard when those big games come about, and we kind of miss that from any player when it comes to those big games. He's kind of like a big game player, so to speak. And coming off that 12 and 13 season, you thought Theo Walcott is going to make that was his kind of like his breakout season, to where he can be a possibly even like a world class type of winner. But of course, with his injuries last year, it just wasn't possible, and we were kind of waiting to see that partnership of Mesut Ozil and Theo Walcott come to light, and we only saw glimpses of it last year. And of course, we were waiting for it to happen this year, and of course now Mesut Ozil is out for the next 3 months with his slight ligament tear in his knee, which is very unfortunate. But it's great to see him back in the side. It's great to see him back in training. Um, Serge Gnabry, he's another guy that's coming back from injury as well. Um, it was probably basically the reason why he didn't go out on loan, unfortunately. It would have been nice to see him go out on loan. Um, you can almost guess that, at least in my opinion, that, he's either going to stay with the under 21s or they're going to send him out on loan, which I think would be beneficial to him to get, whether it's to a championship side or if it's a lower half BPL side. That's in desperate need of a winner who can score, a winner who can, take players on and make a nuisance of himself, because he showed that last season when we were hit by the injury bug again. We just didn't have any winners, and he came in and he really did well for himself, especially being at that age of 18 years old and playing very well. And I think he had 1 or 2 goals. I know he had at least one versus Swansea City, but. If Joel Campbell can't get a game and he can't get into the side, he's been kind of like missing in action. Um, he only had the Everton game and of course the Capital One Cup game versus Southampton. That was his only 2 games, and if he can't get into the side, I highly doubt that Serge Gnabry will get in as well, especially with Theo Walcott coming back. With Oxley Chamberlain playing as well as he is right now, and of course with Alexis Sanchez, and then you also have Lucas Podolski, who seems like he's inching his way out. He's going through the media right now saying that he's unhappy, and so basically you could see him probably being transferred out in January because he seems unhappy, but. At the same time, maybe track back once in a while, maybe show some effort on defending once in a while instead of being lazy like he always is, and maybe he would play more because his finishing is almost like second to none. His left foot is deadly, but when you only play maybe one half of the field sometimes, and when you don't show that kind of like heart and desire on the pitch. When you even do get on the pitch, it's kind of hard to get into the side, but that's a whole nother topic too. It just seems like ever since Lucas got into Arsenal, it just seems like him and Arsene don't see eye to eye on things. It seems like, and it's tough for him to get into the side and stay into the side. Sometimes he only stayed into the side last year because we had so many injuries. We had no other options. Of course, Santi Cazorla can always play on the wings as well, but it seems like hopefully with the injury to Mesut Ozil, that you might be seeing Santi more as a number 10 now. Because now Arsene doesn't have any kind of choice whether we play that 4-1-4-1 or 4-3-3 hybrid. There's going to be 2 wingers on the pitch at all times now, instead of seeing Mesut Ozil on that left or right side and wasting him on the wing, obviously. So hopefully going forward you'll see, the combination play or the combinations now of, it's either going to be Alexis or the Ox, which we probably will see against Hull City. Of course, and the one thing that everybody can't wait for is when Mesut Ozil does come back, and if we do play that 4-2-3-1, and you're going to have Alexis Sanchez on one side, you're going to have Theo Walcott on the other, and then you're going to have Danny Welbeck up top, and that's just a lot of pace, a lot of skill, a lot of finishing right there. And if we don't go to that 4-2-3-1 when Mesut Ozil does come back, probably sometime in late December, early January, I'm just going to be pulling my hair out. But that's just going to be deadly when those 3 hook up and with Mesut Ozil, and especially with either an Aaron Ramsey or Jack Wilshere bringing up the center midfield ninja assassin role, as I call it. To move on to Jack Wilshere, I mean, God, he's definitely in form. He's been definitely in form ever since pretty much the second leg of the Champions League playoff, especially with England. He's had his 2 best games. He just seems to be progressing up throughout this season so far. He's just been getting better and better. especially when Paul Scholes, that guy, which is hilarious. Last year he just took Jack Wilshere to the woodshed and basically told him he wasn't a good player in so many words in the media, and now Paul Scholes is saying that he's the best England player that England have at this present moment. And I kind of find that funny that all of a sudden he says one thing 4 or 5 months ago, and now he's saying a different song. But it's good to see Jack is finally getting back to what he was, like 2, 3 years ago. And we definitely need it right now, especially with Mesut Ozil out, Aaron Ramsey out, Theo Walcott just coming back in. We definitely need Jack to be at his best, and especially being at his best in attacking and basically being that box-to-box center midfielder that we need. Um, could Jack play that number 10 role? Possibly too. It's a possibility, but seeing that he's been playing his best games lately. We saw glimpses of it last year sometimes with, during the time that he did play, and then of course before his injury against Denmark, where he broke his foot. We saw glimpses of what he was, 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're seeing it game after game where he's being a lot more consistent. You can even say in that Chelsea game, he was probably the most consistent. He was probably our best player on the pitch during that game. Um, so it's good to see him back in form, and it's benefiting England for sure. When you finally take out Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard, and those guys finally retire, and Jack Wilshere's going to have that starting position now probably for like the next who knows 7, 8 years possibly, where he can grow into that position and be the leader that England pretty much tagged him as. The next England captain, as they tagged him so early on in his career. But he seems like he's finally fitting in, and he's gaining his confidence back. Of course, like to play kind of devil's advocate, but Jack still needs to mature himself a little bit, especially when he's on the pitch, to keep his temper down and also know when to get rid of the ball. Sometimes he just holds on to the ball way too long. He has just that attacking mind in his blood, that sometimes he just wants to completely go at the defense and create something, which sometimes he needs to pass it off a little bit sooner than he does. But it's good to see him back in form and getting as much praise. All the Arsenal players in this last international break got praise after praise. I think 6 of them, I believe. Once Theo Walcott gets back and fit, I mean, we're going to have probably about like 7 guys on that England national team playing, especially when it comes up to the knockout stages of the Euro. So that's going to be kind of fun to watch as an Arsenal fan to see how those guys do and see if they can lead the England national team to back to like the glory days, I guess you can say, back to where they're a threat and they can be relevant because looking at that England side a little bit, they are very young. At most of their positions, at most of the important positions. You look at, Danny Welbeck, he's only 23. Jack Wilshere's 22, 23. Oxlade Chambers is 21, I believe, and Kieran Gibbs 24, 25. Theo Walcott's 25, and you're seeing all these guys, and that England team's very young. With Sterling's young, Sturridge, I guess Jordan Henderson maybe, but he has a long way to go still, in my opinion. But if England can get their back line straightened out, maybe if they do like a Gary Cahill and Cullum Chambers type of partnership, because Jack Yelker, he's a good center half, but does he really perform on the big stage? Does he really perform on the big international stages? Because he did have kind of a rough World Cup. So do you want to kind of start that partnership with Gary Cahill and Cullum Chambers for the future? Because if they can get that back line secure and playing right, they're going to be a tough team to beat going into the future, especially when you add in a who's currently injured right now and who's out is Ross Barkley. You add in, you put like, Welbeck and Sturridge up on top, and then you have, a midfield or even the wingers of Sterling and the Ox, and of course Jack Wilshere and Ross Barkley. I mean, that's a pretty good attacking line right there. Going forward, and it's young too, to where they can build relationships on the international stage, and they can only get better, in my opinion. So England might be looking pretty good in the next, especially by the time they get to Russia in 2018. That's going to be a tough side to beat, in my opinion, especially if they keep those guys intact rather than flip-flopping the lineup all the time. So England might have a good team going into the 2018 World Cup, which I'm looking forward to. Go on some other news of injury fronts. We just heard about Laurent Koscielny with his Achilles heel. That it's just gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. He's going to be out supposedly anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, which is concerning going into this Hull City game, because Colin Chambers is out as well because of yellow card accumulation. So who's going to be our back line? You're going to see Bellerin playing right back for sure. Per Mertesacker is going to be the only center half. Of course, you're going to see possibly Monreal. That's basically our defenders right there, and then Kieran Gibbs is as the left back, which is ridiculous. As a big club as Arsenal is, we shouldn't have to deal with these problems. We shouldn't have to go on Arsenal.com and look at our defenders, and we only see 6 pictures up on there, which is ridiculous. Who do we have even on the youth side that we could possibly bring up? Isaac Hayden is probably the closest person that we do have at this point that could probably come up to the first team and put in 1 or 2 games here and there, because we're going to need it at this point. I know we have a lot of lesser teams that we'll be playing going forward, because the only big kind of clubs that we're going to be playing from this point forward is Manchester United and Liverpool. But of course, then we still have Champions League games to play. We still have 4 more group stage games to play. Anderlecht is the last one of the first 3, and then we have to Anderlecht comes here, Dortmund comes here, and then we have to go to Galatasaray for our last one. But it seems like Isaac Hayden would probably be the closest person that we could probably call up to the first team, because we might have to. We might not have a choice. Hector Bellerin, he's going to be getting a run of games here pretty soon, because if Koscielny's out for the next 3 or 4 weeks, that means that Colin Chambers is going to move into his position possibly, and then you're going to be seeing Bellerin at the right back, because we just have no other options, which is a concern. Thomas Rosicky, he was supposedly had a little knock or so coming back from the international break, but Arsene Wenger said he is good to go, and he'll be in the squad come Saturday against Hull City. But that's the major concern right now going into that Hull City game. It's not so much of our front line, even though that Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey are out. We still have enough bodies up there that we can still be dominant, and we can still hopefully score goals, because we've been definitely lacking in that department so far this year, is scoring goals and getting players in form, and getting players to have that dominance back again that we saw so much last year. But that back line is just it's going to be kind of a shit show if you really look at it. If Colin Chambers or even Per Mertesacker goes down anytime within the next 4 weeks, we are really, really fucked. Because we have to weather the storm for the next 2.5 months until January hits. And who knows how long that's going to take if we even bring somebody in. That's kind of going into my next point. There was a meeting among shareholders and fans yesterday, or whenever you hear this, that Stan Kroenke, Ivan Gazidis, Arsene Wenger, some of the Arsenal board were answering questions as far as what the club's ambition is, where we're going, what's happening in the transfer market. Are we going to bring people in? One of the things that just really irritates the shit out of me about Arsene Wenger is it seems like when something goes wrong, like with the players, with the transfer market, um, all the brunt, all the blame he puts on himself, and it really pisses me off to see that he takes all the blame for everything. I know he mentioned today because people were asking why didn't we go after another defender, why didn't we buy another defensive midfielder, and of course, what did Arsene Wenger do? Instead of blaming the people who should be blamed, he put all the deflection right onto himself. And he said, well, I'm the blame for all this. Instead of deflecting it towards Ivan Gazidis, Dick Law, the Arsenal board, even Stan Kroenke possibly, um, he puts the blame on himself instead of those guys. When it comes to the transfer market, yes, Arsene Wenger has a lot of authority. He has a lot of control over it. But when it comes to contracts, when it comes to transfer fees, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that control. He can set his evaluation as saying, okay, don't go above 20 million pounds for this player. Don't offer him more than 75,000 pounds a week. He can give those type of evaluations to the Arsenal board, to Ivan Gazidis, to Dick Law. But after that, it's over. He has nothing to do with the transfers after that. He can only say, okay, I would like this player, I would like that player. He can give them a list, and then Ivan Gazidis and Dick Law go out there and see who's available, how much the transfer fee is going to cost, how much the contract is going to be for the wage demands. And as far as I'm concerned, from this summer, most of the blame has to go on Ivan Gazidis, the Arsenal board, pretty much, for not getting what we needed to get in this transfer window. Everything was great up until mid-July. We thought everything was going to go smooth. We thought we were going to get everything we wanted, and of course, once the transfer window slammed shut, we were lacking another center half, and we were lacking a DM to really compete for the league, to really even compete for Champions League. And of course, those deals never got done. Of course, Arsene Wenger came out and said that he's to blame for this because he couldn't find anybody to buy. Well, that's not exactly true because we were linked with so many players, and there was even some inside information that leaked out through Arsenal that we had players in hand, but we just weren't prepared to pay whatever their buyout clause is, or we weren't really willing to pay what the club wanted for the player. So who does that go on to? Does that go on Arsene Wenger, or does it go on to guys like Ivan Gazidis and Dick Law, who are supposed to be the negotiators, who are supposed to get this stuff done? So it kind of pisses me off that Arsene Wenger takes all the blame for all this stuff when it should be deflected onto the guys who are actually running the club, who are supposed to be getting this stuff done, like Ivan Gazidis, like Dick Law, and the Arsenal board. But of course, Arsene Wenger takes all the blame for it. Which it just kind of pisses me off. But the one thing that Arsene Wenger did say in these meetings is that when it comes to January, they will be buying players. I mean, they have really no choice. With Debussy out, with now Koscielny's out, with our lack of defenders that we have, we need possibly, we need a center half. We need another one. We possibly need another right back. And of course, if there's a DM out there that we can buy him too, because Arteta and Flamini, they're just not going to get it done. They're not going to win us the league. They're not going to win us Champions League. For anybody to think that is absolutely fucking ridiculous. One of the concerning, I saw this article. It was on Gold.com that Arsene Wenger is only going to have about like 20 million pounds to spend in this transfer window. I don't take too much stock into Gold.com, especially when it comes to articles on transfers. But if that's even remotely true, that's a big concern going forward. Just because we're going to need more than 20 million pounds, and the fact that if you look at what we spend in the summer and even what we got back from players, I think we only ended up spending something around 50 million pounds. Where's the other 50 million pounds that we supposedly had? Supposedly, in the beginning of the summer, they said that we were going to have upwards to 100 million pounds to spend. Of course, we didn't even come close to spending that, but some reports are saying that we're only going to have 20 million pounds to spend in January, which is ridiculous. Uh, you know, the other ridiculous thing is Arsene Wenger saying that when it comes to this coming January, that we will be signing a couple players. Well, the truth is kind of in the pudding that over the last couple transfer windows, especially in January, we really didn't sign anybody. We really didn't spend any money. I know the year before we signed Monreal, but it's not exactly a huge signing, I guess you could say. Last January we were linked with so many different players to bring in. We needed to strengthen the squad. We needed an extra striker. We needed an extra defender, midfielder, defensive midfielder, and we just didn't go out and get it. You could even make the case we needed another winger as well, because by that time, Theo Walcott was already injured again, and we just didn't go out and get it. We got Kim Kellstrom on loan. That was it. That was our whole January transfer window last season, and like I said, going into this season, we were playing with fire last year when we only had three central defenders with Mertesacker, Koscielny, and Thomas Vermaelen. That was all that we had last year, and we managed to scrape through it. We were lucky that none of those guys had major injuries last year. I know Koscielny was out for about a month and a half last season. But when you can replace him with a Thomas Vermaelen, everything's okay. Per Mertesacker, I think he was only out for like a week or two. I think he was sick with a flu at one point. But other than that, he didn't get injured last year. This year you're seeing Per Mertesacker come back from the World Cup, and he still hasn't found his footing yet. I think with Koscielny, he was hampered with that Achilles injury even before the season even started, and again, we didn't go out there and try to get another center half, which still boggles my mind that we were going to go into the season with 6 defenders total. On Arsenal.com, you can look at it. And, when you're a big club like Arsenal, when you have the money to spend, even if it's a fucking scrub that's going to see the bench for the entire season, you still bring someone in just in case. Even if it's a 22, 23-year-old kid from even from the championship or something league that you can bring in, to weather that storm or just to have an extra body in there. You just do it. You don't. These are the times that you don't have to worry about money. You don't have to say, well, okay, you want $5 million. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I should spend $5 million on this kid when he's only worth, maybe 3 or 3.5. You don't complain about money at that point, because when you're lacking in depth, you need that depth. You need that depth to go through the whole season, and you're seeing some of that right now with Mesut Ozil out. Ever since he got back from the World Cup and he got back into training, and from his first game on, he basically played every single game up to this point, up until the Chelsea game. He played almost every single freaking game. A lot of those games he played the full 90, and when you have a squad depth, when you have embarrassment of riches in the midfield, even at the winger position, but you're playing this guy game in and game out, 90 minutes a game, every single week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week. Stuff like that's going to happen. Their knees are going to give out on them. They're going to get hamstring pulls. They're going to they have more of a chance to turn their ankle. So Arsene Wenger needs to clean up his squad rotation, because there's opportunities for guys to play certain games and to give players rest and to not play 90 minutes for a certain player. So Arsene Wenger, from this point forward, he really has to watch his rotation. He has to rotate guys, regardless if they're in form or not. If they play 4 straight games, if they play, like this schedule basically coming up, if you're playing a Hull City and Anderlecht and Sutherland, and then then you have a week off after the Sutherland game, and we play Burnley, and then we go right back in the Champions League. You need to rotate that squad a little bit. Even if you're going to see the best team possible with Hull City, and then you're going to see them again against Anderlecht. After the Anderlecht game, because that's an away game too, that we have to fly to Belgium. Our next game again is right from the get-go from Sunderland. We had to go Sunderland away. That's a good opportunity to rotate the squad a little bit, to give Danny Welbeck some time off, even though we don't really have another striker because Sonogo is still hurt. Who knows what the fuck's going on with him too. There's just one line on Arsenal.com saying that he's still not ready to go, that he's still out injured, and of course, we don't have the strikers too, unless we play Alexis Sanchez up there. So we sacrifice Alexis Sanchez in the Champions League game and rest him for the Anderlecht game and play him as the striker in the Sunderland game? Who knows what's going to go on with that. But going forward, we need to start rotating. We need to start shuffling guys in and out because it's still a long season. We're still in October. We have to go all the way to mid-May. And Arsene Wenger's just burning people out so quickly, so fast. I mean, that's exactly what happened to Mesut Ozil. Some people were saying that maybe we should have sat him in that Chelsea game instead of playing him because of all the minutes that he logged already throughout the season. And it probably would have been a good idea, especially if you're not playing him as his natural position. Sit him. If you're not going to play him at his anybody's natural position, sit the guy. Bring someone else in. Play someone else. Play people at their natural positions. And so going forward, the rotation has to be a lot better for Arsenal, so we don't accumulate so many injuries going forward. Because we can't really afford any more, especially to the defenders, because you might be seeing Monreal as a center half, which is ridiculous against Hull City, which he shouldn't even have to be asked to play that. Going back into the transfer market or the transfer dealings, if we bought a guy like William Callahall for £30 million that Sporting Lisbon wanted, William Cavalier is a versatile player where he can play that DM spot and the center half spot. So if we bought him, we would have bought him and had him be another versatile player like a Callum Chambers who can play multiple positions, and we wouldn't be suffering right now, and we wouldn't be having to ask that question of, okay, who's going to be on our back line, because going forward, if Koscielny can't get back, within the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're pretty much fucked if Kieran Gibbs goes down because he's injury prone. We're really fucked if Per Mertesacker goes down. We're really fucked if Callum Chambers ever gets injured. So, I mean, we really have to weather the storm going into these next 2 months, and you better go to church once in a while and pray to God, even though if you don't believe in God or whatever, or whoever your God is, you better say a prayer before every night, because it's going to be a long 2.5 months. It's going to be walking on eggshells from this point forward if we can't get guys back healthy, because Debussy isn't due back until early December, I believe, and there was no real type of injury news on him. The other injury news that was probably good to hear is that Olivier Giroud is ahead of schedule, which is something that we never hear from Arsenal. But again, in that injury thing, in my last episode, I was talking about, they had to make inquiries about what's going on with the Arsenal medical staff, about training methods, about, what are we doing inside of Arsenal that we're doing wrong that everybody else is doing right. And of course, like I just mentioned before, the squad rotation has to be there. When you have a guy like Joel Campbell, who had a great summer, who had a great season with Olympiacos last season, who can perform in Champions League, give him a game or two. Even if it's, a game every other week or something, at least you're giving a game. At least you're giving someone else an opportunity to rest, to heal, little knocks, because, every game that you play, you're going to get a knock or two, whether it's a bruise, where it's a deep thigh bruise, where it's maybe you have a couple bruises on your back or whatever. Because it's just kind of annoying that, you have a guy like that sitting on the bench and he can't even get a game because Arsene Wenger's just not rotating the squad like he should. because that would limit our injuries probably as well. When you're not applying so much pressure on a player to play game in and game out, 75 minutes, 90 minutes a game, it takes its toll. And we don't want to have what happened last year happen again this year, because we should have the proper squad depth. By last year, I mean, you could easily say by February we were completely dead. We were completely dead. Our legs were dead. There was no kind of squad depth. There was no rotation. It was like whoever we have, that's who we had. This year it should be different, except for, of course, the defenders. As far as the midfield, as far as the wingers, even as far as the strikers go. We should have a proper amount of squad depth, but it looks like Danny Welbeck will be, pretty much a striker from here on out too, until Giroud gets back, or until Sanogo gets back, to give him a rest or something. But yeah, proper squad or proper rotation and everything. I think that could limit a lot of things. And of course, when the transfer window comes up, center half should be a priority. I mean, we should have someone signed within the first week. I mean, that's how much of a priority it should be. That we should have someone signed within the first week of the transfer window in January, opening up. We need to go back into possibly William Carvalho. We need to look into that again. If Sporting Lisbon wants 30 million, I would say just give it to them. Because they're probably going to be knocked out of Champions League. Who knows? Maybe Sporting Lisbon was being real bitches about keeping him because they were in the Champions League, and because they didn't want to get rid of one of their better players and piss off the fans, of course. But maybe we should go back into that. Maybe we should go back into seeing who might be available as far as a defensive midfielder. A lot of other talk is, Lars Bender, Sami Khedira. Of course, that type of talk is happening again. It seems more likely that maybe a Sami Khedira is more of a possibility, because Real Madrid wants to basically dump him for just about anything, because his contract is up after the season, and they just don't want to see him walk. Unlike Arsenal, where they kind of let players walk away without any type of money getting back from them. Real Madrid wants to get money, at least a little bit of money back from Sami Khedira. So as far as that goes, that might be a possibility. But supposedly Chelsea is in for Sami Khedira too, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever when they have guys like Matic and Ramirez and Mikel and those type of guys playing as that defensive midfielder. It just doesn't make any sense of why they would go out and sign him. It would just be either just keeping him away from us, or it's Roman being, this is my play toy, I'm just going to spend whatever the fuck I want. So that's a possibility as far as transfer news goes. And, there's a good possibility that, we need another right back too. If Hector Bellerin is not ready, because he should be getting a run of games. He should be playing in the Hull City game. He'll probably play in the Anderlecht game. He'll probably play in the Sunderland game, the Burnley game. He'll probably be playing for the next 2 or 3 weeks at least at that right back position, because we just don't have any other options. Because once Colin Chambers comes back, he'll be playing for Koscielny, so it'll be Mertesacker and Chambers as our center halves going forward. Because I don't want to see Monreal as center half. I really don't want to see that. That's dangerous, especially if Gibbs happens to get injured, because we have to be careful with that too, because Gibbs is so injury prone that we need to rotate that position as well. But yeah, that's basically all I've got for you right now. Leave your comments and any type of questions or any type of thoughts you have going forward. Again, got to weather that storm for the next 2.5 months, and it's gonna be kind of scary. But hopefully for 3 points, that's what we gotta be thinking from here on out, because it's gonna be, it should be smooth sailing for the rest of the first half of the season, as far as the league goes. So it should be 3 points or failure. I mean, we got to be thinking 3 points every single game from here on out, even against Manchester United, even against Liverpool, because they're definitely not in form either if you look at those teams. So hopefully 3 points going into Saturday. Hopefully 3 points against Anderlecht to kind of secure our spot in the Champions League group stage to move on to the knockout stage. And of course, Saturday the 25th to finish out October is Sunderland away. So, um, yeah, here's to hopefully a good weekend coming up, and hopefully we'll be celebrating a win against Hull City. And that'll be it. Later.